Pavlich here for townhall.com, and I'm with Ron Meyer from We the People radio show. How's it going?
It's going well.
Longtime friends. So what we haven't heard a whole lot of here is how to influence the youth. Obviously, we're both pretty young, and we're always pretty frustrated with how the GOP ignores the youth vote, and we really think that there's potential there.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it's sort of unfortunate that the major presidential candidates have seemed to ignore this as a whole. We've been going around and interviewing these presidential candidates, trying to get interviews with them, asking them what's their message to young people, and it's all very broad, like, oh, get involved in the campaign, do this, instead of, I feel like when I ask that sort of question, that's something they should know. Barack Obama targeted young people so effectively with a clear message. We need to have something similar to that, and it's not that hard. Obviously, Ron Paul's figured it out with like he's showing here, and it sort of annoys some of the normal conservatives. But we need to look at what he's doing, use it, and realize that freedom and liberty are popular, and the constitutional ideas are popular, and that we need to start targeting young people that way. We need to start going to college campuses, reaching out, and actually, maybe discussing with college students, talking with them, actually
exposing them to conservative ideas and principles. Because once they know about it, they really, especially on college campuses. I just talked to Adam Kissel, who's from the Fire, who works with college campuses all the time. The conservative ideas are not presented on college campuses, so I think the role of the GOP to present that side of the argument, and it's important for the good of society that that's presented by someone, and they're just not doing it.
Well, yeah, individual leaders in the GOP aren't doing it. The RNC has failed as a whole. Hopefully under the new leadership they'll do something, because their coalitions movement has been, it hasn't really done anything on the college campuses that I've seen, or the people I've talked to. And the messaging isn't just really clear. If anything, like Paul Ryan's finally starting to catch on that you don't just throw numbers at people, yet you still need to have a medium between ideology and numbers. Something like, okay, in 10 years, just from the interest alone on our debt, every taxpayer will have a $9,000 tax hike. I think that's something we can all sort of understand, yet it's still conceptual. Like the debt, we need to handle it now. It's something that it's a cause that we can fight for. Global warming and environmentalism has been so effective with getting people to show up.
Yes.
We have our own cause to show up for, and it's to actually have a sustainable future, and it's about sustainability.
Yeah.
Because we can't have a society, we can't fight any of these battles that we want to fight if we don't have a sustainable government. If we're paying thousands of dollars of extra taxes on the interest payments alone, on our debt. We're not talking about the principal at all, and it's just, it should knock some sense into people. And obviously, we want a cause to fight for. We want ideals. Those are freedom and liberty, and yet we still have a solid basis behind what we're doing.
Yeah, it's interesting to me how a lot of, whether they're presidential candidates or politicians on our side, get up at the podium. It's popular to say we're taxing our children and our grandchildren to death. But yet, when it comes to actually figuring out the problem from a young person's perspective, they don't seem interested in doing anything about it. And I really think that's a downfall.
Yeah, they just talk to us as like we're talking. It's like
you're just a college kid. You'll get over it.
But okay, you have to register that you're the grandchildren they're talking about. You're the children they're talking about. It's like, okay, we're real people, and we're actually a lot of us are voters.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's the funny thing is that we've been targeted by the Obama administration to pay for this big spending and to pay for Obamacare. We're having to subsidize the old and sick by being with this individual mandate. We have to go in, we have to buy premiums, and the worst part about it is their price control. So we can't get like the relatively cheap catastrophic care we can get now, which I don't even think is cheap in my opinion. We need to target costs. But we have to go in and we have to buy programs that are only one-third the price of older people's. And older people's are obviously a lot more, and it's a lot cheaper now. So there's price controls in the system. And for someone who's trying to build a financial base, trying to get out there in the working world, trying to get their first job, making $25,000 or some entry-level salary, to have to pay an extra couple of grand for healthcare is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. And you think of family of four. If one person's pulling the healthcare and you have to pay even more for your children, a lot of people live paycheck to paycheck and can barely save for their own retirement.
And talk about a nanny state. We have a paternalistic government now that's trying to tell parents that, okay, until you're 26, you ought to take care of your kids through health care. All right, listen, President Obama, it's not your job to be mommy and daddy for my mommy and daddy. That's just not your position. And I just think it's
I just think it's funny because, they say you can stay on your parents' health insurance until you're 26. Well, what if your parents don't want you on their health insurance?
Or what if they can't afford it?
Or what if they can't afford it? Or I just think it's funny how we have all these numbers for being an adult now. You're an adult when you're 18. You're an adult. You're an adult when you're 21. You're an adult from the age 21 to 25, according to the new healthcare bill. But then you're also another adult. And in the actual healthcare legislation and the information you get from your healthcare company, it says adult children are eligible for. Adult-children. No wonder people don't know what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to behave, because there isn't a clear definition of when you're actually supposed to grow up anymore.
Yeah. We're getting mixed signals, and I think it's something where young people need to get involved, especially with this healthcare thing, with the court cases. I think that young people's groups like Young America's Foundation and other places like that ought to file cases, because I think it's a form of discrimination in a way.
Right. Yeah, it really is.
I mean, that's one of the reasons why this whole Commerce Clause argument, individual mandate, is so key. It's also targeting young people. We're having to subsidize without any sort of real representation.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about Social Security, speaking of being targeted. Social Security currently pays out $100 million a day more than it takes in.
Yes.
So pretty much if you're a working person now who is under the age of pulling Social Security payments, that money, as soon as the government takes it out of your paycheck, is worth negative amounts.
Right.
We've seen Paul Ryan say that he wants to reform Social Security.
Sure.
I think they should completely privatize it. What about you?
Well, I think privatization is certainly something we ought to be open to. I like a step-by-step, more gradual approach to privatization. I think what Paul Ryan has in place in his roadmap is fantastic as a first step. I think that, especially when we're talking about conceptually, our goal should be constitutional government.
Yeah.
Our goal should be constitutional government. How we get there is a step-by-step process. I think he lays out a very good step-by-step process on how to get to a more balanced government, and I think that's part of that is reforming Social Security. And even if it's not privatized, moving more towards having the states be responsible for it, having more community-based government, so people closest to the problems, people closest to these older communities like Florida and all these places can better handle their people if they need to. It's one of those things where we're trying to have this one-size-fits-all retirement program for everyone, and obviously it's not working. Obviously it's not sustainable.
I just really don't like the idea of government controlling your money. I mean, I really think that you should have a choice as to how you want to retire, what you do with your money, and I don't like that the government's going to tell you how much you need to save.
Right.
I do think it's important that people understand that you have to save for your retirement, but I think that they should have a choice. If you want to give your money to the government, they have a really bad track record of spending your money and how they handle it, but also I think that you should have a choice to invest it personally and take responsibility for your own future.
I don't want to sound like a young person, like I don't care about the safety net at all for the elderly that are poor. At the same time, it's like I think that's a sense of community that would build a better support structure for them.
Right.
And we keep thinking that bureaucrats in DC and these politicians so far away really from their constituents can guess who needs help and why they need help. I think it's silly. That's why I like Rand Paul's proposal on the Department of Education. Give jurisdiction back to the states. They know they're more likely to know, and their jurisdiction, people in the cities are more likely to know if their school needs a new air conditioner.
Right.
Rather than some bureaucrat in Washington. I mean, you call them up, how many people you have to go through, how much money are we spending? We're losing $80 billion a year on the Department of Education, and what are they doing? Our scores have drastically fallen ever since we've had a Department of Education. And as someone who's had to go through the education system, I can say that I think it would be better if we gave the power to the states. Let them know their own children, let them know what works best for them, and go from there.
And school choice too. I mean,
exactly.
This is an issue of choice, really.
Well, that's one of the problems with getting a voucher system. If the federal government has their hands in every single state, it's hard for them to try a voucher system because of the jurisdiction problems. That's what Mitch Daniels is running into problems right now. He says he wants a voucher system, but I want to see how he fights the federal government on that, because right now he's going to have problems.
Well, and like you said, they try and lay out this retirement plan that's the same for everyone. They also try and lay out an education program that's the same for everyone. And we're all individuals. We're all different. We all have different needs, and I think it's funny how liberals always talk about diversity, but yet they don't really hold to that claim when it comes to the government. So
no, everyone should get a one-size-fits-all nanny-state type of government. It seems like that everyone has rights, these supposed rights. And see, this is what boggles me. You have a right to health care. All right, basically what they're saying is we have a right to terrible health care.
Yeah.
And where do these rights come from? I think we can at least acknowledge, if you read the Constitution, read what the founders thought, that rights come from God. And if we don't realize that, guess what? They can be gone like that. Yep. That's why we have a Constitution, to enshrine where our belief system comes from, why we've gotten where we've gotten. It's like people don't realize why we're America.
Yep. Big enough government to give you everything you want can take it all away, too. So thank you very much for your time.
Thanks,
appreciate it. Awesome.
All right, word.
Danny, you want to sit down real fast?